A very good afternoon. It is indeed a great privilege and honor to introduce our speaker for this session, CMA Sri Rakesh Shankar. He is an, a staff of our Commerce Department in DG Vaishnav College. He has great educational pursuits in his profile. He is an ardent and passionate educationist. He is a postgraduate in commerce, management, economics, Tamil literature, and Vaishnavism. He was awarded the title of Tirukkural Selvan at the early age of 13 by Ulaga Tirukkural Mayam. To add to this, he went on to pursue a diploma course in Tirukkural from Bharatidasan University. He has been accredited with fellowship from various institutes both in India and abroad. To name a few, he is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, associate member of the Institute of Chartered Public Finance and Accountancy, United Kingdom, fellow member of Institute of Public Accountants, Australia, fellow of the Financial Accountants,
Chitra ma'am, kindly unmute yourself.
He is also a member of the Institute of Directors, India, and a qualified independent director certified by the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. He is a professional member of the All India Management Association, IMA, New Delhi. He has been nominated to the Internal Auditing and Assurance Standards Board since 2019-20 and has formulated the guidelines or the guidance note on internal audit of educational institutions. To add to the feathers in his cap, he has also been the co-author of Financial Accounting and Cost Accounting books, which are recommended by various universities in southern India. Sir, you are a role model to all of us, both students and staff, and we are proud to have you in our session today. The floor is yours now, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the elated introduction. Maybe ma'am is very magnanimous in giving all prefix and suffixes introducing. I'm very happy to be a part of the Vaishnav family. So that gives me a great privilege to talk to the students, to give a platform for the professional qualifications. And I'm extremely thankful to the revered secretary, to our learned principal, and to the head of the Department of BCom Corporate Secretaryship, Dr. Prabha Rajagopalan, for this wonderful idea or thought process to educate the students on the financial statement analysis from various dimensions, the financial parameters, the reporting, the communication part, the seizure part of your reports from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website. So the program is designed for a longer period of time. So the students will get a background idea of how to look at or how to read a financial statement. Normally, we used to say that the financial statements are, it is a communication way from the corporate to the stakeholders. So how to analyze, how to perceive the hidden data or the hidden information, how to establish the relationship between the income, the asset and the value creation model. So we will be discussing the financial parameters today. So students can have their queries clarified. They can note all their queries. They can post it in the chat box at the end of the session, so that I'll be able to take up one by one. and I'm open to all questions related to the topic, related to the project presentation. Students can approach me at any time. I'm always available in the commerce department in the day stream. So students are free to come and discuss with me as well as to all the other faculty members. So we have got an expertise pool in the college. So let me move on to my presentation. The financial parameters for assessment of company performance. I need to thank our Pearson group for granting permission to access the resource materials. Basically, a financial statements in India, we just leave it to the balance sheet, the income statement, the cash flow statement, and we need to refer even to the notes to the accounts to have a better information how to analyze the financial statements. So today we'll be covering on the balance sheet ratios, the income statement and the income statement ratios. Maybe we will relate it with certain balance sheet ratios, a trend analysis in the form of certain projections. I'll give you some examples, and then common size and index analysis we will be doing. So why these statement analysis is required? For trade creditors who are supplying goods or various services to the firm or the company, they are more worried about the liquidity. In how many days they will receive the payment, or how liquid the company is to have a business transaction with them on credit. Bondholders are nothing but your people who lend you loan, the long-term cash flow. I purchase a bond or a security from the company which is repayable after 10 years. So I will be analyzing the company's financial statements over a period of 10 years to understand, will the company have enough cash flow at the end of the 10th year to repay my bond or to complete their obligations. The shareholders are more worried about their long-term health, because the value created by the company. I can quote one example here with regard to the shareholders. We have been talking about the disinvestment in public sector undertaking. Our Honorable Finance Minister, even in the previous February budget, has said at least 2 companies in the respective sectors in the public sector will be privatized. So already the process has started. New India Assurance Company Limited is one of the public sector undertaking in the insurance field. So more than 51% shares were offered for the public as an IPO. Public started buying their shares. It was traded for 700 rupees at the time when it was offered for IPO. And later they offered some bonus shares and other stuff. Post the COVID period, the share price has come down to 134 rupees. The public applied for the shares for 700 rupees. After a period of 1 year, because of the COVID impact, the share has come down to 134 rupees. In the last 2 months, we are recouping to the normal situation. Again, the price has got inflated to 374 rupees per share. So this is what is happening in the market. So these type of analysis is required for the shareholders to decide whether they want to hold the shares or whether they want to liquidate it in the secondary market. So what are the examples? So internally, for a company to have a plan on the current financial position, to equate their short-term funds and to deploy the long-term funds in the capital assets, how they will be able to earn money for the short-term commitments, the control. Any commerce teacher or finance teacher will agree on this point. This is not on the company aspect. Even an individual We should have a control on our spending. We should have a control on our return on investment. If I go to a bank, I deposit 1 lakh in the fixed deposit. We ask a lot of questions. We ask them, what is the interest rate I get? Will it be paid annually or quarterly or halfly? So all these questions, why do we ask? Because we are more worried about the safety of the investment. Similarly, the company which is receiving the capital, the money from the general public, will be interested to know how they should deploy and what is the maximum return they will give it to the potential investors also, and understand how the funds are deployed. Short-term funds should be used only for short-term capital, and long-term funds should be deployed for long-term capital. What is the cost of capital, the long-term capital when it is being borrowed? So what is the cost the company pays? So all these areas should be analyzed. Now, what are financial statements? Whenever I go and ask this question to the students in the class, they will just say the word balance sheet and income statement or profit and loss account. It is not only a balance sheet and income statement, it is even your cash flow statement and notes to accounts. So the balance sheet will give a company's financial position on a particular date, as on 31st March, as on 31st December, as on 31st January. So as on the date, what are their obligations? What are their liabilities? What are their assets? And how much reserves and surplus they have earned till date, and what is accumulated on the particular date. Similarly, the income statement will give a summary of the firm's revenue over a period of time, maybe over a 12 months period, over a 3 months period, over a 6 months period. What was their sales? What was their purchases? So all these will be portrayed by the income statement. Now let me take this example of a Basket Wonder. Maybe you can assume this Basket Wonder is a company. It can be a limited company. So we are just analyzing the asset side. On the asset side, it is called as, we start with the current assets. We have prepared in the form of liquidity basis. So the marshalling of assets, I'm very sure what is marshalling of assets. Most of us have forgotten because we just go with, we just start with the fixed assets and we just end with the current assets. When you look at the marshalling of assets, all the companies which have got liquid funds, which are treating liquid funds, for example, your banks have got the business of accepting deposits and lending loans. So for them, the liquid assets and liquid liabilities will be more. So they will be more interested in marshalling the balance sheet or arranging the balance sheet items in the order of liquidity. What is liquid? Well, like, what money I will receive it in the next 1 year, I will be showing it in the first. And then I will move on to the long-term assets and then fixed assets. The other way of marshalling your balance sheet will be your order of permanency. Permanency, we will start with the fixed assets. It is no more fixed assets. We should call it as a property, plant and equipment, PPE. Because the term fixed assets have been taken away in the IFRS. IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, calls it as a property, plant and equipment. You can fit any fixed asset into the property, plant and equipment. Now, cash and cash equivalents, accounts receivable, inventories, prepaid expenses, accrued tax payment. This accrued tax payment is nothing but a deferred tax asset, which is a specific asset created for a book adjustment. So my total assets comes to 1,195. Fixed assets at cost is 1,030. Depreciation, provision for depreciation is again 329. So the difference is net fixed assets. And then we have got investments long-term, other assets long-term. So if you see the breakup, the current assets is 1,195. Our net fixed assets are 701. Other long-term assets are 273. So your total assets comes to 2,169. Now, just by looking at the balance sheet, we should be able to answer the questions which are listed on the right. how the firm stands on a specified date, what assets are owned by basket vendors, what are the amounts owed by the customers. So the customers will have to pay 394. Future expense items which are already paid. It is nothing but your prepaid expenses and your accrued tax payment. Cash likely to be convertible to cash within 1 year. Your accounts receivable, your inventories. So these two items will get converted into cash immediately. What is the original amount paid on your other items? Your account deductions for wear and tear. Your wear and tear is nothing but depreciation or your accounted depreciation till date. It is 329. Just by looking at it, we will be able to answer various questions. Now, if you can establish a relationship between your assets and liabilities, a relationship between your risk and the equivalent item on the liability side. For example, current assets, we will match it with current liabilities. Long-term assets can be matched with the long-term liabilities. Your fixed assets can be matched with your capital and your reserves and surplus. So you can have an arrow mark and you can convert it, how your funds are getting converted. Can you see the liability side now? Notes payable. Notes payable is nothing but your obligations, your accounts payable, accrued taxes, your deferred tax liability, and then other accrued liabilities, your outstanding expenses. So this 500, we should be able to match with this 1,195 total of current assets and current liabilities. So on any date, we have current assets to the extent of 1,195. If you realize this 1,195, we will be able to pay this 500 rupees. However, you can take 500 rupees or $500. It is up to our perception, but the figures are the same. So if you just look at it here, it is 1,195. We can match it with 500. Long-term debt, our long-term assets of 273, we need to match it with 530. Can you see a mismatch here? Similarly, your fixed assets, we have got 701 as net fixed assets. Our total equity is 1,139.
Rakesh, sir.
Yes.
Sorry for interruption. Sir,
Yes,
are you sharing any screen here?
Yes, ma'am. It is getting shared.
No, sir. No screen has been shared. Now only you're sharing the screen.
Yes, is it visible now?
Sir, now only it is
visible now?
visible. Yes, sir. Now only it is visible.
Yeah, fine. Sorry, I think I need to show the balance sheet. Maybe you can just have a look at the balance sheet. So we need to match these items with the items on the liability side. So just by looking at the liability side, we'll be able to answer the questions which are listed on the right. So your note or assets that are equal to your liabilities. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So when you match this with assets and liabilities, we'll be able to answer many questions. Just look at your liability side. So what are your notes? What are your accounts payable? What is it you need to give it to the suppliers? So what are your expenses payable? Similarly, your debts payable. What is outstanding for less than a year? What is outstanding for more than a year? So what are the earnings that are reinvested in the business? So just by looking at the balance sheet, we'll be able to answer certain questions. Now, similarly, your income statement. Now the income statement, we have started following this format. Your operating income minus your cost of goods sold is your gross profit. and your expenditures, earnings before interest and tax. You subtract your interest expense 59, you get earnings before tax, and then subtract your income taxes, you get earnings after tax. So, and whatever cash dividends that has been paid. See, after this earnings after tax, we call it as an appropriation. This appropriation format, we have got different formats across globe, but it doesn't matter. So just by having a glimpse of your P&L, we'll be able to answer the following questions. Like, what is our profitability over a period of time? What is the amount we have received or receivable from the customers, your total sale? What is it we need to pay to our sales commission, all our overheads? And then your operating income. Your operating income is nothing but your gross profit minus your operating expenditures. We'll be able to discuss on that. And what is the amount that is earmarked for the shareholders? Now, this is how we just look at a balance sheet on face of it. Just on face of it, the prima facie, if you just look at the P&L and balance sheet, we'll be able to say some figures. Is it really worth investing in the particular company? Will I get a long-term value addition or a risk-based value addition? I'll be able to answer only when I use the tools or analytical components or trend components. Now, the first question will be the analysis of the funds. What is the need or requirement for the firm? So how much funding will be required in the future? Do we need to have a component, a seasonal component? Maybe I require 1 lakh in the first quarter, another 2 lakhs in the second quarter. So how I need to make a breakup? And then what tools I will use for the seasonal component? I can have fund statement or cash flows or cash budget. This is with regard to the cash requirement. Your cash position, will be able to use this analysis. And then if I want to study the health of the firm, I will go for the financial ratios, maybe individual ratios or a combined ratio. I will compare ratio between one period to another period. I'll be able to give the answer. And then the risk analysis, volatility in sale, volatility in cost, the break-even point. So we'll be able to express our the business risk. So all these are a lot of examples what we do. We have something called as external comparison with the industry ratio. You would have studied in your academic classes that your current ratio, the industry benchmark is 1.33:1 or 1.5:1, or liquid ratio is 1:1. Is it the industry benchmark? The answer is no. Industry benchmark, we have been expressing this 1.5:1 or 1.33:1 or 1:1 for almost 30 years. My teachers, their teachers have taught them it is 1.5, it is 1.33, it is 1. So they have given it to my teachers and my teachers gave it to me and I am giving it to my students. In reality, it is not. We need to refer to the respective industry associations. For example, if you take the real estate industries, the Flat Promoter Association or the Real Estate Association publishes lot of statistics data. So from that statistic data, we need to ascertain what is the industry requirement or industry ratio, what is the industry capital utilization, and then compare that industry benchmark with our company's benchmark. And what applies to one industry need not apply to the other industry. There are certain similarity or similar principles that will apply, but we cannot apply it on a uniform basis. Now, the first ratio what I'll discuss here is the current ratio. These are called as balance sheet ratio. We will call it as a short-term solvency. Short-term solvency, I will refer two ratios. One is your current ratio and your liquid ratio. When we speak about current ratio, current assets divided by current liabilities, all these ratios are established in the form of number of times. So this balance sheet ratio will give me a firm's ability to cover its current liabilities within the current assets. I think you'll be able to correlate with the balance sheet what we saw, the current assets and the current liabilities. Current assets was 1,195, current liabilities were 500. So we have got 2.39 times of current assets to repay our current liabilities. So this industry benchmark, this 2.15, 2.09, 2.01, we take it from the respective industry associations or industry publication report. Now let us assume that this BW company, this BW company Basket Wonders is in, maybe let us take it as they are in furniture industry. So all the furniture industries put together, we call it as an industry. This particular BW is a firm here. Firm in the sense it is an individual company. So the industry benchmark may be something different. The industry benchmark, all the furniture making industries enjoy the ratio of 2.15, whereas this Basket Wonders enjoy the ratio of 2.39. So they are having a higher ratio, or their ratio is much more stronger when you compare it with the industry average. For the other earlier years, 2.5, 2.6. Can you see the improvement? In the first year in 2005, see, this is only an illustrative example, just to make you understand. Just to a 2.01 was the industry. In the first year, they had only 1.91. So they were having little weak position. Now in the second year, can you see the industry requirement was 2.09. They had all the industries on an average had 2.09 times. They improved. It became 2.26. They became very stronger. And now in the next year, it has increased by 2.15. Now they have become 2.39. They have made their current ratio stronger. Whatever is receivable from the firm in the form of current assets, they'll be able to realize the current assets and they'll be able to repay the current liabilities. This is current ratio. The formula for current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. We will establish in the form of terms. Now we will go to liquid ratio. Liquid ratio is called as acid test ratio. We will call it as even quick ratio. Here there are two ways of looking at this. From the current assets, we'll have to subtract the inventories. The stock can be even a slow moving item. We will have to subtract the inventories and call it as a liquid asset. And the denominator can be the current liabilities. So this liquid ratio will show the firm's ability to meet the current liabilities with the most liquid assets. Most liquid, immediately I'll be able to realize. Now there are some authors who substitute this current liabilities with liquid liabilities. They eliminate the sundry creditors which has been outstanding for a very longer period of time. They eliminate expenses payable. But globally, 99% of the academicians and the researchers agree on the denominator being the current liabilities. Again, here we have eliminated the inventories and we have got the ratio as equal to 1. Can you see? Current ratio was stronger. Acid test ratio is weaker because the industry is 1.25. The company has got only 1. The reason is what was eliminated in the acid test ratio? We have eliminated inventories. So we need to understand, we'll be able to perceive that most of the current assets are locked in inventory. So there is a heavy inventory turnover time. Whatever you produce, it is not sold immediately, or we are unable to push it out in the market immediately. Now, these two ratios now I have discussed with you. Let me go with the financial statements of a company. I have chosen Apollo Tyres because this Apollo Tyres has got a lot of information. You can just see the annual report of the company runs for pages and pages together. So I will just take the balance sheet alone. I've taken 18, 19 here. Can you see the balance sheet as on 2019? Normally, the global standard is that we need to give 2 years figures. The current year as well as the previous year, we need to give it for the comparison. All the students, you can just take the standalone balance sheet. You will have 2 balance sheets for most of the companies. You will have a standalone balance sheet and under consolidated balance sheet. Consolidated balance sheet is a situation where you club your subsidiary company balance sheet together. You can ignore that. You just take the standalone balance sheet alone. If you just take the balance sheet, you will have in the first part, you will have assets. And in the second part, you have got your current assets. So for all calculation purposes, you can just take the total of current assets, what is given here. The total current assets. Don't worry about what is given inside. Just take this total of current assets. So this is for 2019 and 2018. Now, I will just enter it here. I'm just doing a rough working in the Excel. So enter it as current assets. And in the column, enter it as 31st March 2018. And enter it as 31st March 2019. And I will put one more here, 31st March 2020. In case if my screen is not visible, please give me a hint. I will just check it up. So the current assets in 2019, it was 33,507. 33,507.26. Take it as it is. Earlier it was 48,769.22. We will go for the current liabilities and then I'll go with the next year. Now look at the current liabilities. The first part is your equity, the second part is your current liabilities. So just take the total of current liabilities, what is given in the balance sheet. Don't worry about the items which are given inside. Don't worry about the financial liabilities or provisions. Just take it as it is. I will just take current liabilities here. Then 24,894.25. It's very easy. I've just entered the figures. What is my formula for current ratio? My current ratio, it is current assets divided by current liabilities. So what I will do, current ratio is, I will take this current assets divided by current liabilities. Similarly, here also I will establish. Here I will establish. I will just restrict to 2 decimals, or I will restrict to 4 decimals. Since we are allowed to use the calculators, I'll just restrict it to this one. So for 2020, I'll just directly go to the page. Can you just see the balance sheet? Again, here current assets, it is 29,175.46. 29,175.46. Okay, a small difference I will tell you. In 2019 balance sheet, we got the current assets as how much? 33,507.26. Here, can you see 35,104 is there. Here they will give a disclaimer. Wherever certain items have to be regrouped, they will regroup it and the figures may vary. But don't worry, you just take any one figure, that is fine. Because maybe the accounting treatment would have got changed, or there is some legal requirement to reclassify it. So don't worry about the change in figures. Maybe in the subsequent year, they would have regrouped it too with some other figures. So in case of any worst clarification, you can just get in touch with your teachers. Your teachers will be able to address this issue. Now it is 4924.77. Can you have an interpretation on this? In 2018, it was 1.59. In 2019, it has become 1.35. And 2020, it has become 0.71. There is a decrease. Here it was okay, medium, decreasing. Again, it is in the medium state. And it has come to a weak position here. Normally, I think we don't have student interaction. If any of the student can type the reason why it has become weak, just by your general awareness, you just read the newspapers and all. If you can just give me an answer in the chat box, I think I'll take it up later. I'll just appreciate that student later when I discuss a question. But there is a reason it has got a relevance with their operations. Here, this Apollo Tyres have opened up. I just went through their annual report for the March 2020. Apollo Tyres, they have expanded their business operations. So there is a heavy investment in the capital expenditure. Heavy investment or redeployment of funds to long-term investment. So they have reduced their credit policies. So that is the reason it has become weak in the current year. Maybe in another 2 years or 3 years time, when we analyze this particular company, the company will improve. Now the next ratio is called as a liquid ratio. I'll just take the figures here. I'll just put it here. I should convert this as liquid assets. So liquid assets is nothing but I need to subtract the inventories. Again, for subtracting the inventories, when you just look at your balance sheet, on the total assets, the first item will be inventories. You can just take the figures as it is. Just take this inventory figure as it is and subtract it. So in 2018, it was 17,214.91. I have just subtracted it here itself. And here I need to subtract 20,514. 2,514.79. And again, financial year 1920, I need to, again, you can just see it here. Current assets, inventories, it is 1882.51. I think you'll be able to appreciate this. Can you see 20,514.79? Here also we have 20,514.79. I think some other head was regrouped. So here we have got 35,104, and here we have got 33,509 for the original balance sheet of 2019. In financial year 2019-20, they have just regrouped something. Maybe it is related to your trade receivables. There is some change. Here it is 6,198. I can just see it here as 7,794. So there is some change in the trade receivables. Maybe some provision would have got reversed. Now we will calculate the liquid ratio, or it is called as as-it-is ratio. It is very poor. They are like a cat on the wall. Liquid ratio. Can you see? They have planned for the expansion from 2019 itself. So that is the reason the liquid ratio itself, it has got reduced. They have reduced all their inventories and other stuff. So it is medium, it has become weak, and it is very, very weak. It's very weak here. But We cannot say that the company is running into loss. We cannot point out that the liquid assets are very weak. Maybe their solvency position, they'll have to go for a higher overdraft, or they'll have to go for a loan from the bank to address this issue. So this is how we need to calculate the ratio and then interpretation. For better interpretation, I think your one more resource person is there. They'll be helping you how to interpret and write it in your report. Now let me go to the presentation back. And then you can just put a chart. You can just have a industry and your ratio, current ratio in a chart, and you can see whether you are above your industry mark or below your industry mark. Now and then you'll have to write the interpretation in the same way. You'll have to say that the current ratio has been rising, and then the asset ratio is also declining, and there is a weak ratio in the previous 2 years. So which we can point out here in the interpretation. Now the next ratio, apart from this ratios in the balance sheet, we will go for the long-term solvency. We just discussed with the short-term solvency. We will go for long-term solvency. And this long-term solvency, we can even call it as a financial leverage, because it gives you some leverage also. So debt to equity, total debt, the debt is nothing but what is the total liability you have got divided by shareholders' equity. Shareholders' equity, again, we have 2 different opinions. We need to include the earned reserves and surplus also in the shareholders' equity, and then the total debt we need to consider. Again, here we will compare the debt to equity with the market and the company's ratio. The next one is debt to total assets. Total debt and divided by total assets. The total assets, we'll have to exclude our accumulated losses. So here, this total debt and total assets will give us a relationship between the firm's assets, how they are trying to finance the total debt. First, I will help you with the total debt ratio. We will go with debt to equity. Debt to equity ratio. So total debt, total shareholders' funds. Maybe if you have a personal interaction, when we use the blackboard or so, we'll be able to work it out better. So here, let's check with the balance sheet. So here the total debts. Just see the non-current liabilities here. Can you see something called as non-current liabilities? Just take this non-current liabilities for total debt. Unit for consideration. Take this here for total debt. This is 2020 and 2019 is 33,586.78. This is 20. Financial year 18. So this is 33,586. This is 19 and 18 is 28,102. 28,102 will be your figures. And then total shareholders funds. Total shareholders funds. Just take the total equity alone. The total equity will be 76,411.91, 72,606.11, and for 20, just take the figures here, 76,921.47. Now establish a relationship. So can you see this, which is very higher? Your total debt is maybe almost 1/3 or 40% of your shareholders' equity. So here your borrowing funds, your capital plus retained earnings are more. This is your long-term borrowings. So long-term borrowings will include your debentures, bonds, etc. So when you consider this, so your 37% is your total debt, your 44% is your total debt, and 65%. Here, why they have borrowed? Again, you can draw the relationship with the heavy investments, what I said. So their annual report gives us information. Now, there is another way of analyzing this total debt. What we used to do is we used to add both. We used to find the total. We used to take the total of total debt and shareholders funds, percentage debt and percentage shareholders equity we used to do. So out of the total funds what they have deployed, so we can just find out the percentage. See, can you see this? This is 100%. Which one? This is your total. Total is your 100 funds. This is total long-term funds. Out of this total long-term funds, either you can borrow from your third parties or from your banks, or you can take money from your shareholders. Normally, no, my teachers used to say borrowing money is very easy. The procedure is very easy to borrow money from banks. Whereas if you want to issue share capital, the procedure is a little complicated. It is little tougher because we need to follow all the procedures of your stock exchange or borrowing capital from the public. So here can you see, out of your total shareholders funds, it is 0.37 is your debts. So here it is 0.44 and here it is 0.65. If you establish it in the percentage form, out of the long-term funds, 73%, 69% and 61% is your shareholders equity here. The remaining 27, 31 and 39 becomes your debt percentage. So there is an increase, there is a marginal increase. 27 to 31 and 31 to 39, there is a marginal increase in your borrowings. And here, there is, we cannot call it as a redemption. There can be a decrease in the reserves and surplus. Maybe they would have allocated for some other purpose. So there is a decrease in the reserves and surplus because there is no repayment of any capital item here. So this is how we establish a debt to equity ratio. The next part will be your debt to total assets. So what is your total debt and what is the total assets the business has built in all over these years? So when you want to calculate this, total debt to total assets, I will just copy the above items and just put it here for repetition. All this. So I'll just go to the balance sheet. Total assets. Your total assets, you can take these figures. The total what is given, because now we don't show the accumulated losses under the reserves and surplus. We can just take the total assets. We'll have to just show it here as total assets. It is 76,349. 76. This is 164. I'm sorry. This is 164 and I think this is 18, 19, 20. So I need to put it here, the third column. And 136,489.37, I will just put it here. Similarly, 18, the total assets were, this is 19 balance sheet. So this is 18 figures. So I'll just put it here. The total debt, I can just copy it from this. So automatically we will get a reference. So what is the percentage of the assets? So when you compare with your debt and your assets, you have got adequate assets. You have got 85% of assets to fund your 15% debt. See, sometimes this percentage becomes illogical, but there are many analysts who just compare the times, who compare this ratio. We can just add it and we can establish a percentage. The total debt is what we need to pay it outside. The total assets is what we have got it within our firm. So when you analyze these percentages, we'll be able to establish a proportion of what we can fund our assets and our debt. The next one is total capitalization. Even we call it as a long-term capitalization ratio. In this long-term capitalization relationship is, we just see what is our total divide by here. Here we have just taken the total debts. If you just go here, what is our total long-term debts? Our total long-term borrowings is only this. They are just provision for tax, or they are deferred tax liability, current liabilities, but our long-term liability is only this. So this will help us to find out the exact third-party liabilities which is outstanding for, which has to be paid like no more than 1 year. We will compare that with the capitalization. So we will just establish this here. We'll just copy it here and paste. So our total long-term debt to total equity or your capitalization. I'll call it as capitalization. So this is long-term, and this will be our capitalization. That is our equity figures. We can just take it as equity figure. The equity figure, I think, is the total shareholders funds. We can take this as equity because it includes your figures also. This long-term debt, we'll have to just take these two figures as it is. So for 2019, I will take it as 24,438.95 plus 15.34, all our financial commitments. And for 18, it is 18,643.88 plus 131.60. For 20 year, for 20, here it is 32.83.24. And other financial liabilities, there is a heavy increase. So they have taken a higher commitment, maybe even from the, can you see this? Percentage capitalization. Maybe, thank God, they have started giving the payments. 18, 19, 20, no, it is other way. I need to just replace it with the figures. I'll just... So can you see that in the third year, they have got a heavy commitment. There is an increase. There is an increase in the long-term commitment also, but the profitability is very good. The profitability is increasing, increases, adding value to the capitalization. Maybe some terminologies are little maybe higher to understand, but over a period you should be able to catch up. The interest coverage. here we have an issue in the interest coverage now, like earnings before interest and tax and interest charges. Like what is the amount of profit we have got before paying our interest and taxes, and what is a portion of our interest commitment. Now there is a small problem in the financial statement. Now we have just regrouped it. Here if you see the profit and loss account, we have taken this as a finance cost. Earlier we used to have something called as an interest expenditure. Now we don't have that interest expenditure because this interest charges, it pertains to only the debentures. Earlier we were considering only the debentures for the interest payment. All our your working capital, bank loan interest and other interest, we were taking it as administrative charges. Now the concept of finance cost here, it includes both. It includes everything here. It includes whatever interest you pay on debentures, whatever interest you pay on your loans, whatever interest you pay on your short-term commitments, everything is being covered here. So when you want to consider this interest charges, you will have to go and analyze the finance cost schedule. Can you see the schedule number, note number B26? We need to just go and look into. If you just go to B26, you need to just check with the notes. This is B2. Can you see here? They would have given here as B2. So we should go for B26. Can you see the finance cost? Interest on fixed term loans, interest on debentures, interest on current loans and others. So here we have started clubbing everything. Earlier it was not what is the interest charges. The more focus was on the debentures, because like if you borrow a capital, we need to pay dividend. If you borrow by way of debentures, we need to pay the interest charges. Now we need to go to the schedule and take the appropriate figures. If you want to take only the interest on debentures, take only interest on debentures. If you want to take the entire finance cost, yes, you can take it. But when you justify to the external examiner, you should be able to give a better answer. So this is one problem with regard to the finance cost, the interest coverage ratio. What is the quantum of profit we have earned to cover our interest commitment? So the interest commitment today, if you just look at your profit and loss account, it consists of your debenture interest and all interest. So even you can consider that also. So this is how you write your interpretations. Then the activity ratios, maybe now for the paucity of time, I will just give you how to calculate what are the various turnover ratios. When you speak about the turnover ratios, first one we have got inventory turnover ratio. We have got creditors turnover. And debtors turnover. And then, so sometimes we even do calculate fixed assets turnover ratio. So just if you just look at the formula here, we have got annual net credit sales divided by receivables. Annual net credit sales divided by receivables. Again, we need to take only average receivables. Average receivables is nothing but opening receivables plus closing receivables. Let's go to your profit and loss account. We need to make one assumption. Here in the P&L account, we have something called as a sales revenue. Look at the sales revenue here. We just get something called as sales, and we'll have to presume that entire sale is cash, the credit sales, or we'll have to go to even if you go to the cash flow statement also, we cannot take the amount of cash sales. That is not possible because they go with the indirect method in the cash flow statement as per AS3. So we'll have to assume that entire amount of sale is our credit sale and then go with the ratio. So the amount of credit sale, I will take it as this is 2018, 2019, 2020. So for 2019-20, my credit sale is 108, 326.97. For 2019, I will take it as 120, 895.93. For 2018, again, I will just brush it up here. 2018, I will take it as 103, 881.26, I believe. Yes. Next is average receivable or average stock. I'm sorry, it is average inventory. I'm sorry, I've just average inventory. With regard to the inventory, there is one more option where you can take cost of goods sold. Also, you can take, but we will just take the average net credit here. We just take the inventory here in the balance sheet. Can you see the figure called inventories? I have taken it here. So if you see for 2020, you have got your closing as well as opening. So I'll have to add both for 2020. I should add both and take an average. $79 and add it. Just please always use a bracket when you take an average because it should be added and divided. If you don't use this bracket, what will happen? The 20,514.79 will get divided by 2. It will become 10,000 and you will get 28,000 as your answer. So it will go wrong. So now if you just divide it, you will get it in times. So this is how. The next one is, similarly for creditors turnover ratio, we used to go with the purchases for 2018-19. This is 19. So for 19, I'll have to take the average of these two. 2514.79 plus 17214.91. I'll have to use a bracket. If I don't use a bracket, it will go wrong. So for 2018, I don't have the previous year figure, so I'll just take it as the 17,214 itself. I will just take it for example. We will see how do I get it. So the company has reduced. Can you see in 2020, they have just reduced the turnover in the last year. So there is a reduction in the inventory turnover time. So the inventory and then average collection period. See here, this average collection period. We will have to calculate the debtors turnover ratio. And then with the help of this debtors turnover ratio, what we used to do is this average collection period. We used to take it as number of days or months. We can take it as 12 months or we can take it as days. 365 days. We will divide it by the debtors turnover ratio. This is average payment period also we can just calculate in this formula. As 12 months or 365 days. Just move the screen, just give me a moment. 365 days. We will just divide it by the creditors turnover ratio. See, this ratio is always expressed in number of times. Again, for creditors we can take cost of goods sold, we can take the average payables. Here we should consider average payables. We should take creditors plus accounts payable. And here for debtors, we should take only net credit sales and then divided by average receivables. Take it as debtors plus accounts receivable, both we need to add in the balance sheets. Fixed assets turnover ratio, I will just go later. Now, if you just look at this, here sales figure, cost of goods sold, I'll just go later. I'll just take this credit sale as it is so that I can go for the debtors turnover ratio. This part I will go now. Average receivables, just go with the, can you see something called as trade receivables here? You just consider this trade receivables alone, it will be fine. Take it as 6198.22 plus 5501.46. See, normally whenever you just work in the Excel, always first enter all the figures, verify the validity. You can just verify the validity so that it will be always better. Again, here you can consider the trade receivables. So it is 4450 plus 7794.95. Just divided by 2. So here for 18, I will just take the figure as 5501. Take the previous year closing balance itself here. Now, I want to find out that base. So I will take it as 365 divided by this. Again, 365 divided by this. Again, 365 divided by this. So this is my receivable period. Average receivable period. This is my turnover ratio. So just see, this is in number of times. This is in days. Maybe in Excel, maybe students are, maybe you are having some difficulty in just locating it. It's fine. So similarly, you can go with your creditors also. For cost of goods sold, if you just go with your statement of profit and loss account, you just take the sales, subtract the cost of materials consumed, subtract the purchase of stock, and subtract your change in inventories. So if it is already in minus, you'll have to add it. So sales minus cost of materials consumed minus your purchase of stock and minus your change in inventories. If you just subtract these three, you will get your cost of goods sold, because we don't have the habit of having our gross profit or gross profit margin here. And whatever you get it here, this 114 cannot be again set as net profit. It is before your tax. So if you want, you can assume this as net profit. Otherwise, we can just leave it as it is. Turnover ratios, what you can calculate. One is your inventory turnover ratio. The second one is your creditors turnover. The third one is your debtors turnover. And fourth one is your fixed assets turnover ratio. So these basic ratios you'll be able to calculate in all your balance sheets. Let it be I think mostly all of you will be taking only the manufacturing ratios or the manufacturing companies for that matter. So then it is fine. Now, with regard to the profitability ratios, we can calculate gross profit ratio, or we can call it as a gross profit margin. Next, we can go with your net profit ratio. Then it comes your operating profit ratio. Operating profit, we have got operating cost also, we have got, where we call it as an operating ratio, or we call it as operating cost ratio. So first, if you want to take up your gross profit, just calculate your sales, cost of materials, your purchases, change in inventory. I'll just give you some rough figures here. So your gross profit will be your sales minus cost of materials minus your purchases minus your inventory. Just go to any one of the balance sheets. We'll just take the figures as it is. I will take 120.85 as sales here. Cost of materials, take it what is given here. And it is already in minus, so be very careful when you enter it. 2614.66. So this is my gross profit now. Just give me a moment. Expenses. $123 minus 75 minus 3. So it is 10. So from this I will subtract 24, 32, 33. So if I subtract this, it should be fine. I will just establish a relationship between my gross profit and sale. So I will get 33%. If I want it in decimal, I can just go up to 2 decimals. Maybe you can just seek a clarification with your teachers with regard to the change in inventory. Sometimes the companies follow a different format in the change in inventories. If you are unable to track down, because Apollo Tyres take this change in inventory as negative, so I go with this. Normally it should be opening stock minus closing stock. And then your net profit ratio, your sale is your common, and your net profit, what you can do is you can just take this profit before tax and exceptional items. Like no, this one you can take it as the net profit. You just assume it, nothing wrong. If you just do it, you will get your net profit percentage. Here comes the operating profit ratio. See, operating profit ratio, normally we used to calculate something called as operating profit. Operating profit, in the indirect method, I used to take net profit minus non-operating income, because non-operating income would have got included. Add back non-operating expenses. See, whatever is not related to your day-to-day affairs of the business. This is one formula, or the other formula is from the gross profit, you can subtract only operating expenses, you will be able to arrive at your operating ratio. Now, how to decide whether it is operating or non-operating? The first one, other operating income. Here, the word itself says it is operating income. So, leave it. It is not a issue at all. Now, cost of materials, all these employee benefit expenses, okay. Finance cost is okay. Depreciation and amortization expenses and other expenses. So now, go to the schedule. Go to the schedule of the expenses. Again, if you see, they would have given you other income. Other income, interest on deposits is okay. Intercorporate deposit is okay. Others is okay. And then the dividend, whatever is received from non-current investments. If you receive from current investments, it is a non-operating item. So we need to just go through the item and then decide whether it is non-operating or operating. But in the particular Apollo Tyres case, they have given it as operating income. So we can just ignore it. So another 5 minutes, I'll be concluding the presentation. So here, if you just look at the breakup will be given. We need to just look at each and every item and then decide whether it is operating or non-operating. For example, corporate social responsibility, whether to take it as an operating or a non-operating. So, corporate social responsibility has become mandatory. Minimum 2% of your net profit, it has to be spent for your CSR item. So we need to consider it as an operating now. So similarly, if you just look at the finance, other cost, again other cost. So we'll be able to again look into the other cost also. Now, once you calculate this gross profit margin, again we can compare it with the industry and we can decide whether the company has got a strong or a weaker margin. Similarly, your net profit. And this return on investment is nothing but your again net profit after taxes. So if you just look at your P&L here, you've got some item called net profit after tax before appropriations. Just scrolling between the pages is fine. So profit after tax, you can just take this figure, net profit for the year after tax. You can just take this figure, divide it by the total assets, you'll get the return on investment. This return on investment, we can compare with the dividend declared ratio to find out how much is declared and how much is retained. Return on equity is also the same. So instead of using your total assets, we'll be using the shareholders equity here for return on equity. This is the profitability ratio based on your balance sheets. So all these are maybe we can just ignore it. Now, I'll just give you this concept of index. The current assets, you can just total it. You can construct two indexes. One is you can take the first year as your base year. Here they have taken this 148 as a base year. They have made all this as 100. And then they have constructed an index comparing with the next percentages. 148 is 100%. Then how much is 100? 100 divided by 148 into 100. So in 2015, our cash was 100%. In 2016, it has got reduced to 67. And in 2017, it has got further reduced. Either we can have a fixed base index or a chain based index. Normally, fixed base index and chain based indexes. Fixed base index. What we will do is we will take base year. I'll just take these figures here. Cash, AR, inventory, other current assets. So 2015, 2016, 2017. So cash is 148, 283, 322, 10, 100, 410, 616, 14. Again, it is 90, 394, 696, 15. So in the fixed base index, what I will do is, I will take a particular year as my base. I will take 2015 as my base. I will take it as 100. I will take everything as 100% here. And for 2016, what I will do, I will take 100 and divided by 148. And I'll make it as a percentage. Can you see 68, 144, the same thing there, it is rounded off. Similarly, for 2019, I will take 90 as my numerator and 148 as my denominator. So this is what I have established as my fixed base index, because I have taken a particular year as my base. In chain base index, what I can do is, I can take the previous year as my base year for the remaining years. So again, I will take 2015, 16, 17 itself. I will take this as 100. For 2016, yes, 2015 will be my base. This is correct. When I go for 2017, what I will do, the previous year, 2016 is my base. I will take this as a base. In what way chain base index is superior is, chain base index will give weightage to your inflation. This index, we can use it for projection. See, when you use it for your projection, we will use trend analysis. And when you use it with the general price level, that is inflation factor, what is given by the economics ministry, the economic affairs, no, they give us an index. Price level inflation index, when you compare, we will be able to measure the price level changes and its impact. We have a concept called impact profitability of the company. It's a little higher concept, but you can just know the concept. So when you compare it with the future years, when you project for your future, it is called as projection. When you take it for the other years with the price level inflation, we will be able to study the impact on the probable, like the profitability. So with the help of this index, we can use the same for even our balance sheet also and our P&L. So any questions? I can just take it up now.
Sir, we have two questions. From S. Jagdish.
Yes, ma'am. Which ratio can judge the performance of the company? Okay. The liquidity ratio or the current ratio cannot judge the performance. It can just tell you the solvency, whether have they got adequate funds to repay the liabilities. Performance can be measured only by the turnover ratio and the profitability ratio. So the solvency ratio will not give you the performance.
Thank you, sir. There's another question from Suresh.
When current ratio is less than 1, how can I calculate working ratio? Yes, Suresh, it will be negative. Suresh, just to add to your question, if you take the bank's current ratio, it will be very, very negative. So if the current ratio is less than 1, your working capital is less. You'll have to borrow funds. What you say is correct. It will be negative only, your working capital. I couldn't increase the font size. Can you explain the fixed assets turnover ratio? See, fixed assets turnover ratio will establish a relationship between your fixed assets, what is available in the business, divided by total assets. This ratio is redundant now because it is no more fixed assets. We are calling it as property, plant and equipment. So we'll have to call it as property, plant and equipment ratio. So we'll have to establish a relation, like how your fixed assets are giving you an opportunity to earn income. Are they really contributing to your sales? Jeevan Kumar is in D section, I believe. Good. Any other? I think I'll just throw light on one career opportunity in this ratio analysis. Ratio analysis, with the help of ratio analysis, you can make money. Chrysler, Irvana, credit analysts, there are a lot of companies who analyze the balance sheets and the financial statements or your P&L account or for your cash flow for giving a credit rating. So if you just enter into the credit, if you want to enter the credit rating agencies, you should have a better presence of mind, an innovative mind, analytical mind to analyze the balance sheet interpretations. So even if you just put a projection for MSME just by giving the what to say for a MSME sector, let us take the example. One of your relative is having a business. He is asking you to prepare a projection. If an auditor is going to prepare a projection for 2 or 3 years and give it to the client, they will charge 5,000. So our third year students, if you want to take it up as a part-time business, you can do. You can earn money just by analyzing the balance sheets and preparing a projection. For net sales, which we should take revenue from operations. No, take only revenue from operations, because the operating revenues may not be real operating revenues. We have got other income. The companies take it as operating, but in reality it is non-operating only. You just take only revenue from operations or revenue from sales. What about working capital? If your working capital ratio is negative, which means your current liability is more, the company has to either build up the current assets or reduce the current liabilities. They'll have to immediately settle their payables to reduce the current liabilities. Hope, Naveen, I've answered your question.
Sir, I think we are done with the questions. I take this opportunity to thank you for your stellar presentation. This session has a whole new outlook to ratio analysis in terms of simplicity, detailed focus on the nuances of financial analysis, as well as an absolutely clear financial ratios. The practical and very clear explanation will definitely have a huge impact on the performance of our students at a crucial juncture of project finalization, sir. Our are definitely due to the management of our prestigious institute, DG Vaishnav College, Secretary Sri Ashok Mundra ji, our Dine Principal, Captain Dr. Santosh Babu, our enterprising and ever motivating heads of the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, both day and evening, Dr. Prabha Rajagopalan and Dr. Kalpana Devi, for their excellent support and ever encouraging attitude in all our endeavors. Finally, in this session, I take this privilege to voice the gratitude and thankfulness of our students for this excellent knowledge sharing opportunity. We thank you once again, sir, with a small note that since you started your career in our department, the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, we can proudly say that we are the owners, and so you are owner's pride and neighbors envy. So definitely commerce will have to envy you because you started your career in our department, sir. Thank you once again.
Ma'am, it was a pleasure. It is my parental home, because when I joined this college, I was in corporate secretaryship for 5 years. Normally, we used to go to the classes and do this presentation. It was a wonderful experience to do it online. I am always open to the students. Any student having any clarifications, yes, you are always welcome to reach to the Commerce Department. So any faculty will be able to help you. It was a nice session. Thank you so much, Rajeshtra ma'am. Thank you for your coordination. Thank you.
Students, kindly fill up the attendance link before you wind up. Thank you.